I want to do a review with your rules of exponents, or exponent laws, they may be called. So I'm going to try to combine some of these rules, focusing on having negative exponents and zero exponents is the added concept for these. So here's problem number 1. I have 3y times x to the 4th power times 3y to the negative 3rd power. So some things to notice here. First of all, try to get in the habit of recognizing your coefficients first and treating them like plain numbers. So 3 times 3 would be 9. So now those are gone. Sometimes it's easy to mark these off. So now let's look at your x's. This is the only x that I have. And so since it's positive, I'm going to keep it on the top. And now it's gone. And now this y has an exponent of 1 when there's not one there. So here's this one and this one. Now, anytime you have a negative exponent, it has to be moved to the other side of the fraction. So you need to make a fraction. This one is positive, so it's going to stay on the top. Y to the first, gone. Y to the negative third needs to move to the bottom, and when it moves to the bottom, it becomes positive. So now we can go one step further because we have a y on the top and a y on the bottom. So these don't change, but we need to ask ourselves, are there more y's on the top or bottom? There are more y's on the bottom, so the y is going to stay on the bottom. And we ask ourselves, how many more? There's 2 extra. So that is your final answer for number 1. So here's another one like this one. Y times x squared times 6 times x to the negative third, y to the positive 4th. Now, if you'd like to pause for a second and try this one on your own, and then you can come back and work through it with me. I'm going to recognize that I do have a coefficient here of 6, and that's it. So we're going to keep the 6. So now let's look at your x's. Here and here. So this x is positive. I'm going to keep it on the top. This x is negative. I'm going to move it to the bottom, and it becomes positive when I move it. Now I'm going to look at my y's. This has a 1, and this has a 4. They're both positive, so I can put them together. And I have 4 here and 1 here. You add when you're multiplying, so that's y to the 5th. Now I can go one step further, and I can simplify these x's since there's some on the top and bottom. The 6 stays. For the x's, there's more on the bottom by 1. So x to the first, or I can just leave the 1 off. And then the y to the 5th stays on top. So that's your solution for the multiplication. Now we're going to try division. So we're going to have 5y to the negative second over 5x to the negative second. Again, let's focus on our coefficients first. Treat them like plain numbers. 5 over 5 reduces, cancels each other out. Now I notice that this is negative and this is negative. And we know whenever it's negative, we move it to the other side and it becomes positive. So this one's going to go to the bottom and this one's going to go to the top. So now on top we have x squared. It became positive. And on the bottom we have y squared. It became positive. We cannot cancel these because one's an x and one's a y. So that one's done. Again, if you want to try number 4 by yourself, and then turn me back on and check it, now's the time to do that. 3 times y to the 0 power over x to the 4th, y to the negative 1st power. The absolute first thing I recognize is the 0 power. And the y is the only thing that's going to the 0 power. If it was like this, then it would affect the whole thing with a 3 included. But it's not. It's just on the y, and anything to the 0 power is 1. So literally, it's going to cancel out because 3 times 1 is still just 3. So I have a 3 on the top. So now that whole thing is gone. Let's look on the bottom. X to the 4th. Nothing to go with it. It's positive, so I can leave it alone. It's gone. But here we have a negative on the bottom. And when it's negative on the bottom, we move it to the top, and it becomes positive. A positive 1 exponent is not necessary. 3y over x to the 4th. Finally, we're going to do two product rules. 3a to the negative first, b to the negative first squared. Again, first we look at the 3, and we have to square it as well. So 3 squared is actually 9. So now the 3 is taken care of. So now we're going to do a power to a power here, power to a power. We'll deal with the fact that it's negative in a minute. So power to a power, we multiply. So negative 1 times 2 is a negative 2. Then 2 times negative 1 for the b is also a negative 2. So now we recognize that both of these are negatives. So we're going to move them to the bottom. 9 stays on top, and both of those move to the bottom and become positives. We can't put them together because one's an A and one's a B. Again, if you want to pause, try this one on your own. You can, and then come back when you're finished. Same thing. Let's look at our coefficient first. Don't forget, this is the common mistake. People will forget to square the 3. That is your most common mistake that you'll see. 3 squared is 9. So now that one's gone. So now we have a power to a power. So we're going to multiply 2 times negative 1 for the a and get a negative 2. So now the a is taken care of. And then 4 times 2 is 8, and it's positive. So now that's taken care of. So now the only problem we have is this. Since it's negative, it's got to go to the bottom. So the 9b to the 8th power stays on top, and the a to the negative 2 goes to the bottom and becomes a positive. So hopefully that helps with rules of exponents, a little bit of multiplying, dividing, product rule, power to power, and your negatives and zeros. Please don't forget, we didn't see many examples here, but anything to the 0 power simplifies to a 1.